Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the local review body. I'm the clerk to the review body, John Burke. I'm just filling in it for the moment as we don't have a chair. And I'm just looking for members to confirm discussions regarding Councillor Edlin taking the chair for this meeting. Are any members otherwise minded? No. Then unanimously, Councillor Edlin will assume the chair from now on.
Thank you, colleagues. Welcome to the meeting of the local review body. My name is Councillor Edlin and I am the acting chair of the local review body. I'd like to introduce the elected members present, Provost Mary Montague and Councillor Chris Lundy. I'd like to now introduce the officers present. John Burke to my right is the clerk to the local review body. Mark Brand is the independent planning advisor to the local review body. He has no involvement in the processing of any of the planning applications which are subject to review. Jerry Mahon on my second to my right is the legal advisor responsible for preparing the local review body's decision notices and to provide advice as necessary. Okay. We're now item 4, apologies for absence. Do we have apologies for absence? I think it's Councillor McLean and just
in terms of
Councillor.
Yeah, in terms of this meeting, Chair, it would just be Councillor McLean, as the others couldn't attend in any case due to not having considered this item previously.
Thank you. I think we don't need to go through direct declarations of interest because it's as before, I presume, unless colleagues wish to.
Again, with it being a fresh meeting, Chair, I would ask that that be observed.
Yeah. Colleagues, do you have any declarations of interest, please? None declared. Okay, business considered to be. The local review body has been asked to consider one item of business today. The details of the case are as follows. Notice of review 2023/01, external alterations and change of use of former social club to commercial units comprising retail unit, class 1 hot food takeaway units, sui generis, and a class 2 unit. Alteration to car parking layout and access to Columba Club, 69 Darley Road, Barhead. Notice number, I think it was as before, now I'll read it out again, 2021/0911/TP. I don't know if I'd like to say this, but I think this was the subject of an inspection in the past. I think
it has appeared before at the review body, Chair. And this is now additional conditions have been added. So if the review body is content to proceed on the basis of the information that they currently have to determine the review, go ahead with that.
Just before we go ahead, have all the members present today been present at the last time we visited the site? I know Provost was there. I remember speaking to them. I don't remember if you were there, Councillor Lundy. Were you there?
He was present, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have sufficient information to determine the view? Colleagues, professional advisors. We have sufficient, okay? I'm seeing nods all around that everybody seems to be happy that we have sufficient information to determine the review. Mark. Should the local review body decide to determine the review without further procedures, I'd like to move on. I'd like you to speak to the application at this point.
Review board members, I'm wondering, does anybody wish a recap, or are we all okay on the basis of the site visit last time and the discussion that we had last time? I'm happy to run through the case officer's reason for refusal and the appellant's case for appeal if people wish to hear that again.
I personally, I don't require to hear anything further on that, but I'd like to make sure my two colleagues are satisfied. Can you please, colleagues, let me know if you want a further. There. If somebody is there. Councillor, can you turn off your phone? So, anyway, could you indicate, Councillor Provost, whether you wish further information from Mr. Brand now? Because your hand is raised. Provost, would you like to speak there, please?
Yes, please, Chair. Yes, I think even for the sake of anybody watching the viewing, the recording of this, I think it would be useful to refresh your memories about the various points and aspects of this. So I would welcome what's been suggested. Thanks.
Thank you, Provost. And as the Provost has made this request, it's only right we defer. So would you please give a relatively brief summary?
Yep.
So everybody is updated.
Okay.
With concentration on the new information when you speak.
So very briefly, Chair, the case officer considered this and was of proposed refusal on the grounds that the two hot food takeaways within the proposal were outside of the town centre, which is contrary to policy SG 10. The roads department also considered the proposal and refused on grounds of car parking, a visibility display of 90 metres, and concern that vehicles couldn't enter or exit in the site in forward gear. The appellant, very briefly, I'll just summarise their reasons for appeal. They looked at the National Roads Development methodology for car parking and came up with an alternative figure of 25 spaces being sufficient. That was proposed and submitted as part of the application. They pointed out regarding loss of trees that the number of trees to be felled was 7, and there was plenty of other trees within that neighbourhood. And finally, with regards to the point on being out of town for fast food takeaway, that the number of takeaways in the town centre, there were 18 takeaways in the town centre and 5 takeaways out of the town centre. They point out it was small scale, and actually the site was accessible by public transport or indeed by walking, not being too distant. So that, in summary, is the case for and against, so to speak. At the last meeting, there were a number of conditions proposed. These primarily related to odours and extraction equipment, operating hours proposed by our environmental health team. The discussion which we had focused really, if I can just recap again, focused on 2 issues: the visibility display of 90 metres to either side of the entrance, and the felling of trees. Since the last meeting, there have been further discussions with roads and development management, who have provided 2 new conditions which they feel would be sufficient to cover these issues. The conditions are contained in your report. I'm happy just to read them out, Councillor Provost, if you would like for that. Chair, are you happy with?
Mr. Brand, I would prefer you to read them out, I think.
Yeah.
The Provost has indicated people may be reviewing this later,
Sure.
so it's better they hear everything now.
Yeah, okay, I will read out the 2 additional conditions. So condition number 7, this would be, Chair, that further investigation has now taken place, and in relation to these 2 matters raised by the local review body during its deliberations, the following conditions are now proposed. Prior to the commencement of the development, hereby approved a plan showing a visibility split of 2.5 metres by 90 metres in both directions at the junction of the access to the site with the existing road shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority, and thereafter maintained to be free from obstructions exceeding a height of 1.05 metres above the adjacent road. The reason for that condition would be to ensure public safety in accordance with policy D1 of the local development plan. The second condition relates to the trees. The condition is worded as, prior to the commencement of the development, hereby approved, a landscape plan for all parts of a site not covered by buildings shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority. The site should be landscaped strictly in accordance with the approved details. Details of a landscape plan should include a scaled drawing showing all trees to be retained, trees to be felled, trees to be lopped, and trees to be planted. There should be no excavation or raising or lowering of levels within the prescribed root protection area of retained trees unless in writing by the local planning authority. No felling during the bird nesting season, 1st of April to 31st of July. And the reason for this condition is it's required to safeguard and enhance the character and amenity of the area to provide ecological, environmental and biodiversity benefits in accordance with policies D7 of the local development plan 2.
Mr. Brand, before we go on to questions from the elected members, did you make a recommendation as to whether we should accept or reject this?
I'm not in a position to make a recommendation. That would have to come from the case officer. My role is simply to explain the finer points of planning policy. The recommendation remains as it was to refuse the application on the grounds of a out-of-town SD10, out-of-town takeaway, D7 loss of trees, and D1 the road traffic issues regarding the visibility splay. So that was the case officer's recommendation to refuse.
Since then, there have been some changes that you've just read out, and we've read these things. If I go into the ones I recall off the top of my head, the issue relating to the trees seems to have been resolved, and there will be no net loss of trees, I think. Is that right?
That would depend on the landscape plan. The condition is actually for the appellant to produce a landscape plan, which would show in greater detail how the trees would be treated. You know, trees to come down, trees to be lopped, trees perhaps to be planted.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that had been addressed, but it's not been addressed. Is that what you're saying?
It would be. It has been addressed by the case officer, who has proposed, on the basis of your decision to continue the review board. On that basis, they have proposed this new condition, which wasn't in the original.
So is it your opinion, if, in your opinion, and I'm going to come back to colleagues who will be able to ask similar questions,
sure,
if these new conditions relating to the trees are acceptable, would that be acceptable to the professional staff as being acceptable on that basis for dealing with the tree issue that my colleagues raised in quite a bit of detail last time.
Chair, can I just I believe as Mark is an independent advisor to the committee, it's actually not permissible for him to express an opinion in terms of the thing is for the committee to make that decision.
Well, it's very difficult for us because, I mean, particularly at the last meeting, I remember the provost raised some very big concerns about the trees, and either these concerns have been addressed or they've not been addressed. So what you're saying is there's been a proposal from planning, but you can't comment whether the proposal is adequate or not. Is that correct?
If I can clarify, Chair. So the planning officer, the case officer, has not recommended to approve. That is down to the members within this meeting this afternoon. But they have suggested this condition, which, if you are minded to approve, I suppose it gives them a further matter of control over the application. So with regard to the trees, that condition, it depends what the applicant would submit. It's a landscape plan. There would then be discussion that the planning officer would have to sign off on that plan that it was, satisfactory for their approval.
I'm going to preempt what my colleagues are going to say, but I'm going to give them a chance to speak. But it would seem that we should be seeing that plan before we approve the proposal, because although you've given me some rather vague answers about the proposals that the staff have given to the applicant. So perhaps, Jerry, could you please clarify that? And then I'm going to go to my colleagues and see how they feel about that. And before I do that, I will raise the issue of the concern about access and road safety, etc.
Thank you, Chair. What Mr. Brand says is correct. It's not for him to offer an opinion as such on the proposal. It's for members of the board to look at the information before them and make a decision as to whether or not this is a viable planning application. What in essence has happened to date is that the board at its last meeting, in light of the discussions that were had at that time, have asked the road service to provide them with possible conditions which may be applied in the event that the board determines to grant the application. The provision of those conditions by the road service is not in itself an endorsement of the application by the road service. It is essentially an indication of what the road service would like to be attached as a condition to any grant, so that they can maintain a degree of control over that application. The information that you and your fellow board members have to consider is that contained in the original report, which provided you with details of the application and details of the reservations which were held by the planning officer who was considering the case. So these conditions are not changing those reservations. They are merely providing you with an avenue should you be minded to grant the application. You're also being asked by the various professionals to include these conditions so that a degree of control can be retained.
This is all a bit vague for me, but from what I'm hearing, I think we should decide, colleagues, if these suggestions by the professional staff are acceptable to grant approval, or do you wish to see a rather more, how would I describe it, a more concise, detailed application coming forward about the matter of the trees and the road access? Provost, can you go first with this, because you've quite some experience in this.
Do you mind if I defer to Councillor Lundy, because he did have his hand up before me, so I would like to hear his contribution to Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry, Councillor. Councillor Lundy, I don't see your hand.
I think it's went away now, but just for you know, we were talking about the roads and the trees in great detail in the last discussion. I think should the conditions, the new conditions that are added by roads and by the environment regarding the access, visibility and the trees felling, should they be met by the applicant, I would be minded to accept the application, because I think that was our major concern. So if them conditions are put in place, you know, it'd be up to the officers to determine whether the applicant's plan to combat these issues would be acceptable in order for the plans to go forward.
Thank you, Councillor. That's very helpful. Provost.
Thank you very much, Chair. I still have concerns emanating from the original report that talked of road safety, but pedestrian safety as well. And although there are kind of mitigating proposals being put forward, the original proposal to refuse still stands. And so that's as far as road and pedestrian safety is concerned. That's upheld by Roads Department and our planning officers. They still maintain that this does not secure public safety as far as our professional officers are concerned. As regards the trees, I understand that the applicants would put forward a proposal which would have to be satisfied by the officers then as far as landscaping is concerned. And I would always ask for the inclusion of any trees lost to be replaced, so that the number, as you suggested, Chair, the net number of trees lost has been replaced. So I would still revert to the concerns of our officers regarding public safety, but I would support the amendment about the trees and the landscaping aspect of it.
Thank you, Provost. Having heard what's just been said, I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Lundy, noting your concerns, Provost, which I also noted. And we have to also give due regard to the economic benefits of the proposal and also the state of the premises and what's there at the moment, and how this will certainly be an improvement on the derelict site that we saw when we went there. So I've lost my, I think we're ready. I'd like to move to accept based on the conditions as proposed by Mr. Brand and his colleagues, and subject to their satisfaction moving forward. Is that acceptable, councillors?
Could you include could you include the aspect of the trees, you know, to match the ones who are being felled in your proposal, Chair?
Well, Mr. Brand, can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, Provost Montague, it's fairly normal for somebody to submit a landscape plan as a condition. If the landscape plan is, you know, sort of deemed unsatisfactory by the case officer, the applicant will not be able to put a spade in the ground with regards to their development. So the condition of a landscape plan allows for further discussion between the case officer and the applicant over what is acceptable, what is achievable, what is realistic. It allows for, I can't sit here and say how that will pan out because it will be taken on by the case officer, but it provides a means for that case officer to have that discussion and going forward. And as I said, the development wouldn't be able to proceed until that has been signed off by our chief planner.
Provost, are you satisfied with that answer? You are. Colleagues, then can I move to approve the proposal as amended? Agreed?
No, sorry.
You're not agreeing,
No,
Councillor?
I would
Provost,
not agree. I would uphold the officer's recommendation to refuse on the grounds of public safety. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Lundy?
I would move to grant as amended.
I also also agree to grant as amended. So I declare that the decision is to grant as amended.
If I could just come in there, Chair. So the local review body has agreed to grant with conditions as set out in the report. Provost Montague, your objection will be noted, as you didn't have a seconder for your proposal. And other than that, you proceed as normal to issue the relevant notifications on that application.
And colleagues, there being no further business today, I declare this meeting adjourned. Provost, I wish you a recovery from COVID, a good recovery from COVID. I can see you looking rather well at the moment, I'm sorry to say. And Councillor Lundy, thank you also for being here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the meeting is concluded.
Thank you.